So now I'm going to be bringing in our next guest, Mattie Leonard, and we'll just wait for her to come in. She'll be in shortly. Okay, audio is connecting. There she is. All right, wait. Go ahead and unmute.
How are you? It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for being on the show. Welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, first of all, it's a beautiful background you have there.
Yes, I have my two books, Building Me Back Brick by Silent Cry there,
Yes.
and Building Me Back Brick by Brick.
Nice. Okay, so well, tell me about both of those books.
Okay, well, Building Me Back Brick by Brick, which is this one, is about my struggle with addiction and how I got to a point of recovery. You know, I was in the military, and my last year I injured my back and got on opioids. So I ended up retiring. And from there, it went to more street drugs as they had the whole opiate epidemic and they stopped giving it to you. So I went to look into street drugs to one, I was depressed and angry because I had to get out, even though I retired, and I couldn't walk at the time. So I was having a hard time dealing with that because my coping mechanism was always work. And then to not be able to work. And back then, you didn't go to counseling. So I didn't know about counseling or anything like that. And that's what I needed, but I didn't have that type of support at the time. And so I got onto more street drugs. I ended up in jail 4 times, got 2 DWIs, a felony possession charge. And I talk about it all in my book. And the last time I was in jail, I thought about writing. And actually, there was this inmate in there that would write short stories, and we would pass it around to each other. And I saw how easy it was for her to write and come up with characters and stuff. And so I started writing about my situation and what I was going through. And that's how the book Building Me Back Brick by Brick came about. So I talk about my journey through addiction, and then I talk about how I got to the point of recovery in that book.
Well, I've got to say, first of all, as a veteran myself, thank you for your service. And I do understand how something like that happens. We leave the Army. I was in the Army. I'm not sure which service you, Army as well. Okay, so we leave the Army with bad knees and a bad back and a bad this and a bad that. I still have back problems from the Army. And there, if sometimes if we don't have the proper care, sometimes those things can happen. And so I thank God that you were able to find your way from that addiction.
Yes, it was a trying time, but and it took some years. And I finally got to a point where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I wanted to make a change for my life. Yes.
Amen.
So I have the second book that I wrote called Silent Cry. And it talks about, now I've been married 3 times before the age of 30, married and divorced.
Wow.
And 2 of my marriages were, there was domestic violence involved where I had to go to a shelter to live. And I dealt with sexual coercion in my teens. I dealt with a stalker. This was after the marriage. And so I talk about all the incidents that I went through that fall under the umbrella as domestic violence. So this is not one incident. It's like several incidents in one book to let you know that although you may go through different trials in your life, that, our past don't define us, and that we can get to a point of healing. We can forgive and we can move on. And that's what I hope, this book will present itself to people.
So it sounds like you did a lot of introspection to write your books.
Yes, writing the books, having to relive the situations over again gave me a lot of perspective. It let me see the repetitive patterns that I had in my life, the people that I was attracted to, the same type of people. It allowed me to see the red flags that I ignored and
Mm.
started to apply them to my life so that I wouldn't go back down that same road. Today I'm single and I have peace. I'm content with myself today. Before I was always looking to be with somebody, always having to be in a relationship. And that caused me to pick the wrong people, the people that I thought were showing me excessive attention, the people that were jealous if I was somewhere else or always wanted to know where I was at. At that time, I looked at it as, oh, they really like me. They really care for me. Oh, this and that. And that wasn't the case. It was a possessive type relationships that I was looking for at that time. And now I know to be weary of those relationships, that jealousy, that anger, that um, um, over attention that someone may give you. It's not all good. And I had to learn the hard way. And in writing this book, Silent Cry, it lets me show people that, what they need to look for and how you can easily find yourself in these predicaments if you don't heal yourself, if you don't find wholeness within yourself.
What's interesting is that I'm glad that you're sharing this story because, first of all, we're coming up on April, and April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So this is a really timely story that you're telling as we move into that month. But one thing that's resonating with me as you're telling your story is that we sometimes picture soldiers as being these really strong people. We have it all together. I saw your bio, and you were in charge. You were a non-commissioned officer, a leader. You were in charge of the situation room. And so, people were depending on you. People looked up to you. And then being a non-commissioned officer myself, I know what it's like when everybody is leaning on you and everybody is looking to you, but you don't always have somebody else to lean on. So really what winds up happening is that a lot of times senior non-commissioned officers and the senior leaders were the ones who had the substance abuse problems, or they had the highest suicide rates because they didn't always have somebody whom they could turn to.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And when I got out is when I started seeking help, and I was diagnosed with all these things by borderline personality disorder, major depression disorder, all these disorders that had to be dealt with, and going to counseling, relying on your God, your higher power, just uh, just healing from those resentments, those feelings of abandonment, the feelings of
Right.
rejection. We have to heal from that, because if not, we take it from one relationship to the next. And we have to come to that realization that we choose who we want in our lives. We make that choice. We can say no, or we can say yes. It's up to us. And we have to set boundaries for our life. That was one thing. I was a people pleaser. I wanted people to like me. I wanted people to always see the good in me.
Yeah.
And I had a mask on. Most of my life I wore a mask. And I had to learn how to take off that mask and be me, and allow people to accept who I was,
Yes.
who I had became, and be okay with that. If they liked me, they liked me. If they didn't, they didn't. But be okay with it. And,
Mhm.
and that's what I had to learn in myself. And I'm yeah.
No, you are good. Like I said, this is your platform. But I'm glad that you said that because then I realized that about myself as well. I mean, I felt like I'm doing for you. Why can't you recognize that I'm doing for you and give me that same love back? And everybody is not wired that way.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
makes sometimes it makes it more difficult.
it does. And that's something I had to learn too, is not to have, I had high expectations for myself. So therefore I had high expectation for other people. And everybody's not on the same level. And I had to learn to accept people right where they're at, you know,
Right.
and not expect anything more or anything less than what they were capable of giving me. And even with my parents, I resented them for the longest, and growing up, now I know that they did the best they could with what they knew at that time. I couldn't, because I'm a parent now, and I look at some of the mistakes I made and I said, wow, I shouldn't have did that. I shouldn't have did this, but I did the best I could with what I knew.
Hmm.
There's no manual how to be a parent. You know, this thing, you wing it. Whatever the situation is, you got to go with it, and you can't give anything that you don't have. So I
Absolutely.
learned that, and I had to accept my parents for that, and not be resentful. And what helped me too is I started writing this third book called Trauma, Healing from
Okay.
Trauma in Your Life. And I haven't published it yet, but it talks about, you know, um, it gives you this picture of a backpack full of rocks, a
Hmm.
rock of resentment, a rock of anger, a rock of abandonment issues, a rock of rejection. We carry these around on our backs from relationship to relationship, from situation to situation, and we haven't healed from it. And what we need to do is take out that rock of anger, take out that rock of resentment, take out that rock of unlove, take out that rock of mistrust, abandonment issues. And we will notice that the weight is lifted, that we have a freedom once we deal with those issues, and we heal from them, and we remove them out of our lives. We forgive those that need to be forgiven, and we forgive ourselves, because a lot of times we really um hold ourselves accountable for things we have no control over. And we have to learn to forgive ourselves. So that's what I talk about in that book, is that healing process, how to relive it, how to start addressing it, how to remove it, how to get support. For the longest time, I didn't feel love, and I was looking for love in different people, expecting them to make me happy. Well,
Hmm.
I had to learn, I had to find the happiness within myself. And before I could be good to anybody else, I had to be good to myself. I had to accept myself right where I was at, acknowledge those defects of characters and shortcomings that I had, and try to change them. We have to address those issues and work on them, and remove them from our lives. And we'll notice that our backpack is a lot lighter, that the weight
Right.
shoulder is a lot lighter. We're not holding those grudges anymore, and we can move on. We can now live in the present instead of continually living in the past. So,
Right. Now, your books, do you address how a person can get to that point? Because I think sometimes it's easy for us to say that you have to learn to do this or you have to ask yourself that. But sometimes a person may not have the tools to ask themselves the hard questions or to do the work to get on the other side of that self-blame or self-doubt.
yes, I actually asked some questions in the book to reignite. Because first thing I say, you got to make a list. You got to make a list of those traumatic incidents that you went through.
Hmm.
And you got to make a list of the emotions that you're having behind the traumatic event, whether it be anger, resentment, you know, those emotional baggage that we carry from a traumatic situation, then we have to start trying to heal from it, where we acknowledge it. We don't make excuses for that situation, but we put ourselves in that shoe. We put
Right.
ourselves in their shoes and see a different side of why this traumatic incident happened, or how we could have changed something or did something different. We acknowledge it. And so, yeah, I go through the steps so that we can really heal. And that really got me, having to go through those steps and write these lists out. Really got me to a point where I could say, yeah, I went through that, but it does not define me. It does not dictate who I am today. I don't have to keep reliving that over and over. I can release it and let it go. Now that I've talked about it, I can release it now. It's no longer a weight over me. It's no longer keeping me captive. It's no longer keeping me from trusting people, you know. And then, you know, you have to learn. It's hard to trust people, but you have to learn that everybody's not out to hurt you. Everybody's not out to do you wrong. And, you know, a lot of times when we've been hurt so much, or we tend to think everybody, we put a shield up and we say, okay, how are you going to be to me before I trust you? No, go in that relationship with trust. Now, if they break that trust, they weren't worthy to have your trust, and move on.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So now, and I saw that you speak to women who are in recovery programs and prisons. Is this something that you've built a platform doing? Is there a certain program that you visit, or do you go to various programs to speak?
Yes, I go to different rehabs.
Okay.
When sometimes they ask me to come if they've heard me speak, but on a weekly basis, I go to a particular rehab and talk to the women there about different topics in Narcotics Anonymous, in different areas of our life, whatever it may be, medication and recovery, or self-acceptance, um, getting rid of those obsession and compulsions, abstinence, different topics that I'll talk about with the women. And I also go to the prison on the first Saturday of every month, and I talk to the women that are locked up, that don't see any hope for their lives. You know, because, you know, I went to rehab myself, and when I got out, I associated with the same people that I had associated with before. And I got back into drugs.
I was about to say that makes the recovery harder.
Yes. And it made it that I did learn some stuff in recovery, but because I chose to go back to those old people, places, and things, I ended up going back out there. So I talked to them about, hey, you don't want to go back to those people, places, and things that were doing the same thing you were doing when you was in your active addiction. You don't want to go around somebody that's still using. It either two things that happen. Either you'll, and this is likely, unlikely that you'll get them to be to stop using. Majority of time, it's said that they'll get you to start using. So trying to let their time that, you know, God has sat them down in rehab or sat them down in the jail to be worth it, to have a learning experience that, okay, I have to make this change in my life. I have to do what needs to be done. I can't listen to those obsession and that compulsion to use. I have to abstain. I have to just, you know, stop and don't put myself in those predicaments. If you were a club goer, you can't go to the club no more because now there's drinking and drugging in those clubs. So that is going to have to change. Also, I talked to them about changing their life because changing your life is scary. When
Yes.
you're doing something all the time and it was regular, it's scary. It's hard. And I know for me, when I first stopped using and I was going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings, which helped me a lot, um, I was I was like, oh, this life is boring. This new life is boring. I don't, I don't got no excitement, but I had to learn to accept that about my life. Maybe I was a boring person, I had to learn to be more energetic and be outgoing and talk to people because, when you're in addiction, you live an isolated life. You tend to isolate a lot.
Yeah.
And even when you have mental issues or you are untrusting of people, you isolate. So there's different numbers. And one thing they say in the basic text is that this is the basic text that Narcotics Anonymous have. It says we were addicts long before we picked up the drug. So there were things about us that we had addictive behavior towards, and we had issues and stuff that the addiction is just the symptom. This is what we picked up because of something we don't want to deal with or something that we don't know how to deal with. Like for me, with pain in my back and having that sciatic nerve going down my leg, and not getting the help I needed, or, being shameful that I was in addiction, shameful that, I retired, but I felt like a failure because I couldn't work. And
Mhm.
and so dealing with those feelings, I didn't want to feel. So we have to get to the root of why we started using, why we do the things we do.
Right.
And once you get to the root of that, the sky's the limit.
Wow. That's big.
Yes.
Yeah. And I guess also we've got to remind people that it's not an easy process. And I know sometimes we make it seem like, okay, all you have to do is stop going to the club. All you have to do is ask yourself the questions, but it's not going to be something that's going to happen in a day. And it's not going to be, it's not, there are going to be some times where you might relapse or you might make a mistake. It doesn't mean that, okay, it's done for. There's no hope now.
Right. And that's something that we see a lot when people relapse. I had relapse in my story, and when I relapsed, I felt shameful. I felt embarrassed. I felt like I was going to be judged, because I was doing service commitment in the Narcotics Anonymous meeting. I was chairing the meeting, and then I stopped going to meetings. COVID happened. I had surgery on my foot, and I stopped doing the things. I stopped reading my literature. I stopped praying. I stopped going to meetings. I stopped doing the things that helped me get clean in the first place.
Yeah.
And
Because you felt like, okay, I'm good now. I don't need to keep going.
because of that, I went out with my friend. I had a drink. The next thing I know, I was taking shots. The next thing I know, I was looking for my drug of choice. So we
Mhm.
tell people today, even if you didn't have a problem with alcohol, you do now, because alcohol or weed will lead you down the road to getting whatever that drug of choice you wanted. It's a gateway drug. It's going to take you, this disease of addiction is progressive, and it lies dormant within ourselves.
Yes.
I tell them it's like, this is crazy, but I say it's like having herpes, where it lies dormant in your body, and you wouldn't do certain things because of it, but because it lies dormant in your body, it can flare up at any time, and you
Right.
have to be cautious whether you need to take medicine or you need to be abstinent, whatever the case may be for that disease. They say in the basic text that if you have allergic to peanuts or something, would you still eat it? knowing
Right.
that it's going to cause you to swell up or do all these things. The same thing with addiction. The same with drugs. Would you still use that drug knowing that it's going to cause you to have car accidents? It's going to cause you to have wrecks. It's going to cause you to be in jail. It's going to cause you to hallucinate, be schizophrenic. It's going to cause you to black out. Would you still do the drug knowing that?
Right. Right.
Reaction to that situation, you have to treat yourself with care. You have to practice self-love on yourself. You have to practice that self-care. And that's something that I had to do. I had to seek mental health counseling because it was unresolved issues from my past that I couldn't deal with. And when I got clean, I realized, because I was still angry and bitter and being clean, I was angry and bitter and resentful. And I'm like, okay, this can't be the way clean needs to be. Being clean and being and not using drugs. I'm still
Yeah.
irritable. I'm still what is I need to address me now. I need to go to counseling. I need to talk about these things. I need to get healing from these things. And it's nothing embarrassing to go to counseling.
Yeah,
And
I'm very glad that we in recent years we started to normalize getting counseling and getting help, going to therapy. Because at one time that was something that was like a source of shame, or in our community we thought it was something that only rich white people did. Regular black folks don't do it, and then so many people just normalize things that they didn't need to normalize. We thought having depression was just somebody with an attitude problem, and they just need to cheer up. So I'm very glad that we've started normalizing getting help.
yes, because for years I dealt with depression, and I I couldn't change how I felt. I had to have mood stabilizers. So I take medication today to
Mm,
help me stabilize my mood because I was diagnosed with major depression disorder. So everything that and even borderline personality disorder, where you see everything as black or white, either it's all good or it's all bad. There was no in between. So I had to learn how to shift from those thinking. It was like, you are a bad person. You did this, you're bad. There was no in between. It was no, and that's something that I had to learn in Narcotics Anonymous, where I didn't have no brothers and sisters growing up, so I never had anybody to talk to or to learn social skills. I didn't learn how to bicker and be okay and still love
right,
the same. I didn't learn those things. So when we bickered or had some kind of disagreement, that means I cut you off.
mm,
And that's how I lived. So I lived a very lonely life because I was always cutting people off. And I had to learn that you don't have to cut somebody off if they do something that you disagree with. You can
right.
disagree. It's just so many learning curves. I had to go through so much to get through all of the traumatic situations that I had been through. I had so much scarring and so much unhappiness in my life. And today I can finally say that I'm content with me. I'm content to the fact that I was an addict. I'm a recovering addict today. I'm not that active addict. That I did go through domestic violence and abuse. I was stalked. I did go through those situations. My dad did leave me. I did go through abandonment issues. My mother drank. So she was there present, but she was mentally checked out. And I grew up trying to figure this stuff out on my own. So it took me a long time to get to the point where I'm at now. I'm 55 years old and I'm just now finding, the healing process, the freedom of not dwelling on your past and living the life of turmoil. And like you said, it's a progress, it's a process. We didn't become addicts overnight or we didn't become depressed or distrustful overnight. Those are things, it's a process. And you tackle one thing at a time. We can't erase everything in our lives. So yeah.
Well, this was a conversation I believe that needed to be had. So I hope that the right ears heard it. So the name of your book is well, go ahead and hold them up. Yeah, there we go.
Building
So
me
we
back.
have,
Okay, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
Building me back brick by brick about my struggle with addiction,
Yes.
and Silent Cry about my journey through domestic violence and abuse. And next year I'll be having Trauma coming out. So yes, and you can find my books on you can go to my website to see what events and stuff that I'm having.
Mhm.
The website is www.mattie mattie dot Leonard Leonard, or you can find me on my Facebook, Mattie mattie dot Leonard Leonard.
Well, I did put your website as well as your Amazon link in the chat. So I hope that everyone who needs this book will go and support this book because it sounds like there's some great information in it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for allowing me to be on your show.
Oh, well, thank you for being here. I'm sorry you weren't able to meet Gwen tonight, but she had a rehearsal that she needed to go to. So I told her I would hold it down for her.
Yes. It's good to have friends you can count on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you enjoy the rest of your evening. Congratulations on all that you've accomplished. And please stay in touch. We hope to connect again soon.
Oh, I'll be out there for the Black Book Festival in October.
I'm looking for you in October. I'll be there as well.
Yes, I'll be there in Houston.
Okay. Well, you have a wonderful evening. God bless you.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye.